Support for the Living Wisdom podcast is provided by In Touch Pharmaceuticals, a long-term care pharmacy committed to meeting the specialized pharmaceutical needs of their clients. Visit intouchpharma.com. Season 2 of our Living Wisdom podcast is well underway. I'm Karsten alongside Deb Carriveau. And this season, we're really focusing on how-tos. These are going to be quick videos that are going to really help you in a pinch. Deb, one of the things when you talk to people who are dealing with dementia or walking this journey, the word aggression seems to pop up quite a bit. If you at home are maybe experiencing a bit of an aggression from your loved one, what would you say to people? How do they handle that?
So the first thing I would say is people have a tendency when we experience aggression with another person or in our interaction with another person, people have a tendency to interpret that automatically as anger, and that puts us in a defensive frame of mind. One of the things I would share is that typically when we're dealing with someone with dementia, most of the time their aggression is about fear. They're anxious, they don't understand. It's fear related to, I may not know who you are, I may not understand what's being done or what you're trying to get me to engage in. And typically that aggression is a defense mechanism because I don't understand, and that's what it can be about. Now, if we encounter aggression and we continue to push somebody, we continue to argue, we continue to disagree or try to make someone understand us through being louder and pushier and more aggressive ourselves, typically that will have a very negative impact, and this person will ultimately become angry and start to physically be defensive. So instead of that, what we want to think about is if you start to encounter aggression, or let's say it starts as irritability and disagreement, don't argue. Understand that your person with dementia loses the ability for rational thought. So depending on how far they are in this disease journey, they start to lose the ability to understand that what you're trying to tell them makes sense. So trying to argue is futile. It will just raise your temper and theirs, and it just creates a really negative situation. So first thing is to try to stay calm. Try to be reassuring. Again, think about it as this person is afraid. If you think about the person responding out of fear, you want to comfort that person. You want to reassure them. You want to make sure they know and understand that they're safe, that you're not doing anything to try to harm them. If we think about it as anger, we don't see ourselves coming across as reassuring. So if you can keep that in mind, that try to be calm, try to reassure, try to let them know you're safe, they're safe, you're not trying to do anything to harm them. The other thing is to try to remember when somebody is being aggressive, take a step back and ask yourself, have I done a good job explaining this? Have I done something to help them understand? Do they know what it is we're trying to accomplish? Sometimes it's a matter of you just have to walk away, give that person some time out, you take some time out, let everybody just take a deep breath and regroup before you try to come back at it again. The other issue is take a look at what is happening in the environment around you. People with dementia tend to be overstimulated very easily. So if there's a lot of noise, if there's a lot of chaos, maybe you just need to go shut the TV off and do that kind of a process in just trying to reorient and calm things down. Because if there's too much going on, I become overwhelmed and just can't focus on what it is exactly you're trying to get me to do. The other thing is to make sure that you're looking at overall what is the motivation in what you're trying to do. Remember, we need to give people the ability to have choice, to be able to feel like they have some level of control in what's going on in their life on a day-to-day basis. So if you are giving commands, if you're taking control, if you're dictating to me how everything's going to be done and over what time frame it's going to be done, I'm going to react negatively to that. So I have to be able to feel like I have some choice or control in what's going on.
If things do turn aggressive and the caregiver realizes this is not something that I'm fit for and I can deal with, that's okay.
That is okay. It can be overwhelming, particularly when you're dealing with a loved one and you've been together for a long period of time and this feels really hurtful and what you're trying to do starts to impact your loved one negatively. That can be a really kind of overwhelming emotional response that you might feel. And it's okay if you can't. Just stop what you're doing, back away, don't push, don't argue. The other thing I'll tell people, and this works even with things like bathing that we have talked about previously in the series, and that is, one of the things that we know research has shown is that if you know that there's a particular task that you're going to try to do with a loved one that typically you've encountered some resistance to or some negativity, one of the things you might think about is what is something that gives your loved one real pleasure? What do they really like? What do they really enjoy? Because what we've learned is if we do something that evokes joy and pleasure for an individual that we're trying to care for, about 30 minutes before we do that task that typically they resist, even though they may not remember that activity that we did 30 minutes ago, what does stay with them is the biochemical response that happens in the brain when we evoke joy or pleasure. And that biochemical response keeps that person from being able to be aggressive or combative about what the task is you're doing. And so that chemical response that's positive and will help manage their mood and stabilize that for you will stay with them for hours after you do that 30-minute activity.
This is tough. You are not alone, that is for sure, with this journey. If people have any questions, what's the best way to contact you?
So please reach out, call the general number at Hubbard Hill Living Wisdom Center, ask for me, and the right people will connect you, they'll get you to me, and we'll do everything we can to help.
Support for the Living Wisdom podcast is provided by In Touch Pharmaceuticals, a long-term care pharmacy committed to meeting the specialized pharmaceutical needs of their clients. Visit intouchpharma.com.